Hi, George here, and I wanted to show you a great resource for Photoshop Elements or other programs as well. This is especially good for small business, for people who have a side hustle, people who work on crafts, and also great for the holiday season. And that's all of the free templates available here at the Avery Templates website. And I'll put this link in the description so you can get right to this. Lots of labels in here. Click on the View More to get everything shown. There we go. And keep in mind that these aren't just for Avery labels. There are lots of companies that make labels, and they normally list on the package what Avery label size they are compatible with. So these will work with all kinds of different labels and also just straight paper as well. One of the most standard here is the address and shipping labels. We'll take a look at this one, but the same basic idea here is for all these things. We have address and shipping, business cards, regular cards, name tags, badges, file folder labels, binders, dividers and tabs, rectangle, round, oval, square, CD, DVD labels, other odd shapes, good for packaging, roll labels, fabric and t-shirt transfers, tickets and tags, chemical labels, other products, and of course you can see all of them on one page with the all templates. Let's stick with the address and shipping labels in here. Loads and loads of these. Notice that there are 305 different sizes in here. You can change the label section you're looking at right here, or you can choose by type of label, address, return address, shipping labels, different features on here. The WePrint option is an option where Avery will print these for you, but I'm assuming that we're going to be using this on our own printers. You can go for specific sizes right down through here, how many labels per sheet, and the sheet size. If you're working with a regular printer, then you want the letter size right there. That's your standard letter size paper. And the most common label size is the 5160, very common for address labels, return labels, things like that, but also good for product tags or even holiday tags, pretty much anything you want. But as you can see, loads and loads and loads of different templates in here. And the way you use a template, just click on the template icon, takes you into the page for that. You either can work with Avery's own online design tool right here, but we'll do this in Photoshop Elements. So come down here, it says Download Blank Templates, and simply select your software. They have versions for Microsoft Word, Adobe Photoshop. This also is Photoshop Elements, Adobe Illustrator, Adobe InDesign, Adobe PDF, and Apple Pages. Now, if you are working with Affinity products, Adobe Photoshop is compatible with Affinity Photo, Adobe Illustrator is compatible with Affinity Designer, and Adobe InDesign is compatible with Affinity Publisher. As you can see down here, lots of different label sets that are compatible with the 5160 standard label. There's the icon, and simply download that template to a location on your computer. Now, they're going to ask you for an email address, or if you have an Avery account, go ahead and do one. That's free. And all that you're really getting here is it's going to be saving projects and label sets for easy access. You can design online and join their newsletter, download as a guest. Now, I already have an Avery account. I'll go ahead and I'll just use my Avery account. And of course, that's blocked out for you, but my email is now on there. Click on download, and you can then download that label. And I'll put it here into my projects folder. This is just a folder I made on my C drive. I named it projects, just an easy place to access stuff from. Choose save, and that's now downloaded. Okay, let's go over, open up Photoshop Elements, and let's open that up and see what we get. Here we go. And right now I'm working in Photoshop Elements version 2025. I'm keeping that because that's more compatible visually with earlier versions of Photoshop Elements. They've changed the accept and cancel buttons in 2026, so I'll begin using that version in a few months. But for right now, I'll stick with this one for a little while anyway. Let's go to File and Open, and I'll navigate to the folder that I downloaded this in, which is right here, my project folder. And there is the PSD file. Again, PSD format, this is standard for Photoshop and Photoshop Elements. Note says this is using an unsupported color mode. My guess here is that this is in a CMYK color mode, which is correct for Adobe Photoshop. You can handle that. You also can do CMYK inside of Affinity Photo, but we don't have that in Photoshop Elements, but that's fine. This will just convert to the RGB format. And there we go. There is that label. Now to see the lines in here, I'm going to put a new layer down here. Click on the new layer button. Let's pull that layer underneath. And I'm going to rename this layer here, Label Template, like that. Let's now fill layer 3 with white. Let's go up here to Layer, New Fill Layer, Solid Color. Choose OK, and let's make this white. There we go. And this little kind of a mini line in here, that's standard on labels where the very center one, it's right up against the other label. So sometimes if you're backed out a ways, you don't see those lines, but they're there. Don't worry about that. If you zoom in, you'll see that. So it's just a standard white label. This matches exactly the layout of the labels on the Avery page. Now, when you fill this in, you don't want to be printing these black lines, so simply hide that layer that says Label Template, and now you're all set. Okay, now, if you wanted to put in a whole bunch of addresses in here, one thing you cannot do in Photoshop Elements is you can't do a mail merge or an address merge. So I can't give it a list of addresses and have it fill in the label with that list of addresses. You can do tricks like that over in Adobe Photoshop. It's far more powerful. So in Photoshop Elements, you'd have to enter in the addresses individually on a per label basis. So as I said before, Photoshop Elements isn't necessarily the best program for a professional environment or a business environment, but it can work out just fine. It just depends upon how much time you want to put into doing this. But for personal use or a small business use, this is perfectly fine. Let's just put something in here on one of these labels. I'll go over here and let's grab our shape tool. We'll go to our custom shape option. And let's just grab a snowflake. And I'll put a little snowflake right there. We can change the color of the snowflake, of course. Come down to our foreground color. Let's just find a nice light blue in here. Some real kind of a nice pale light blue. Maybe like that. Got the paint bucket and just click in there and that recolors that into that light blue. It's kind of a black outline on that. That's just because I'm on that shape layer. If I change layers, that outline goes away. Then if you use a Control-T keyboard shortcut, you can adjust the size of that to whatever you want, just like that. If you want to have this on more labels, it's easy to do. If you want it lining up exactly on your labels, then you should put in guidelines. So say I wanted to have this in here about a 1/2 inch from the side. I'll bring a guideline into that 1/2 inch point, which is right there. I'm seeing it up here. Or you can place a guideline at that specific spot. Let me just remove this guideline. There we go. Go up here to View, come down to New Guide, a vertical guide, and I'll put this at 0.5, which is 1/2 inch in. And choose OK. There we go. There's that 1/2 inch point. You can do the same thing over here. Let's say this is going to be at about 3 1/4 right there. I'm just kind of eyeballing that. So about 3 1/4 would be correct. So again, View, come down to New Guide, and that is 3.25. That's 3 1/4. Choose OK. There's that guideline. And then over here, it looks like 6 is just about right. Same thing, View, New Guide. Let's put that at 6 and OK. So there's my vertical guides. This matches on all of these. If you want to have this horizontal in here, again, just eyeball where you want that. It looks like this right here is just about 3/4 of an inch from the top right here. Let's just do that line. So View, New Guide. I want this a horizontal guide, and I want that at 0.75. That's 3/4 of an inch. There we go. And I can then come in here and position the snowflake exactly at that point. If I wanted to have more of these, go over here where it says Shape 1. I'll right-click on this. Let's duplicate that layer. Choose OK. And I'll pull that over here and just snap that on. The center should snap right to those guidelines. Over here, right side, duplicate layer. Choose OK. Pull it over here, and that should snap right to the guidelines. There we go. That's exactly the same place on all those labels. If I wanted to have this on more of these, again, I'll need to come in here and kind of eyeball where that should be. An easy way to eyeball it is to grab a line down here from the ruler, put it about where you want to see that, and then on the left-hand side, you can watch where it is on that ruler over there. Either use the view to put a new guide at that point, or just go ahead and put it in manually like this. This is oftentimes just as easy. So just look at the left side ruler. There we go. And just come in and bring these down. So I'm putting them all at about 3/4 of an inch. Like that, we'll just go down the whole page here. Okay, now if you want to get these on quickly, you want to do batch work on these labels. Let me show you how you can do that and just make it easy for yourself. Now I want to save one of these on its original location just in case. So I'm going to right click on this. Let's duplicate that layer, choose OK. And we're going to hide the first one here. I'll just hide that layer. So that's just the single one over here, left-hand side. So I want to go back to a single layer. I'll now select these 3 layers. That's all 3 of those snowflakes. Right click on that and let's merge shapes. They're now on just one layer. Let's right click on this, duplicate layer, choose OK. Here's my new copy up here. I can then drag that down and have all 3 of those on one line. Do the same thing again. Take this layer and the one just below it. That's all 6 of those. Right click, merge shapes, and then right click, duplicate layer, choose OK. And now I have 6 on here, so I'll pull the 6 down like that. And I could either keep on multiplying like this and just fill it in that way, or I can just make copies of this because there aren't that more to do. And there we go. Here's a whole bunch of labels, all with that same graphic in the corner. Now I could use these again as name tags or as gift tags or as mailing labels or return addresses, whatever you want. If you want to put in text, all you have to do is just choose your color, choose your type tool right here, and just type in. Now my type size is huge. Let me bring this way down. 8 point's a bit small. Let's try 12. 12 is better. So my color is white, so I'm just going to double click on that, select that. Let's change our color here for the type to black so we can see that. And I'll erase this stuff. So you can then put in your address or anything else that you want to have on your labels. Again, if you want to have the same thing on all of your labels, just repeat that same thing we did over here. Makes it a lot faster. If you want to have something different, that's fine. Now, one thing about this, if you're working in Photoshop Elements 2025 or 2026, and you come in and put an insertion point in here, it's going to give you this, what's called Greeking text in there. You just type over that and you're fine. If you're working in an earlier version of Photoshop Elements, then what you're going to be getting is just an insertion point just like that. Same thing, when you see that, just type in your text and then you're fine. And then when you want to print this whole thing out, make sure you have your labels in your printer and then hide the layer that we named label template. That hides those black lines. And it will then print beautifully on your label sheet. I use labels all the time in my business. I've used them a lot more in the past. And I love that you can get these label templates for free over on the Avery website. I'll put a link for that in the description. You just click on that, go right to that page. If you want to have a lot more tips and tricks about how to work with Photoshop Elements, I have a great tool for that. It's called my HTG Photo Coach. It's primarily a super powerful help system or help file for working with Photoshop Elements. And I have hundreds of step-by-step articles in there, plus a lot of other stuff on how to use Photoshop Elements. It covers all versions. I just did the update in there for 2026, so there are new articles in there. I'm also adding in video now to go along with the articles. It'll take me a few months to get this job finished. But once I'm done, there's going to be video for all the articles as well. And if you already know how to use Photoshop Elements, it's the best tool you can have to help you continue to use Photoshop Elements and answer all those questions that you have when you're working with the program. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Give me a like on the video. Also, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any videos in the future. And I'll see you next time.